I am so excited and honored to be here today. We are celebrating HBR's 100-year anniversary. And when I think about that, wow, 100 years. HBR was funded October 22, 1922, and it's been a long time. I'm going to take you to a long journey, and we're going to start that journey with Kim Soares. Did I get your name right?
You did, Kim.
I think I asked you about 5 times today.
Kim Soares.
I am Maria Arrieta. We met today.
Hi.
So hello again. I feel like I'm a new agent in front of you because I just got licensed in 2016. But this is not about me today. This is all about you, and I want to know about your journey. How did you begin? I know you got into real estate because someone that's very special to your heart brought you in. So could you just take us down that journey?
Okay, thanks. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and just to share my story, or actually more like my family's story. And that is that my father was a realtor many, many, many decades ago. And that is how I started, because I loved Dad and Mom and watched what he did and thought it would be fun. But let me take you back to how he got started.
And so your dad's name for the audience is?
This is Jack Leslein.
Okay.
And Jack, Dad, and I'll always reference him as Dad, so Dad is Jack. Okay. Mom is Shirley. And Mom and Dad started a journey mid his career. After he had been a realtor for many years, then they started a business together.
Okay.
So, shall I start with Dad?
Yes, I want to hear all about it.
Okay. Because he's a lot more exciting than I am, I think. But he started his career in the 1970s, late 1970s.
Wow.
In a little tiny office. I don't even know how many people were there. I only saw one person there ever. His name was John McCurry. And some people, some seasoned or old timers, may recognize that name because I'm sure he was around for many decades as well. But he started there, and then he signed on with Gloria Damron, who was a really well-known, respected lady back in the day, where he officed there for many, many, many years. And then he's transferred for a short time to Bradley Properties, just a very short time. I think it was like even less than a year. And after that, he started a franchise with Prudent Investors, East Oahu Realty. And then after the franchise stopped, he went on to just East Oahu Realty. And that's kind of where his legacy was started and ended. And he's pretty, and I think I'm putting Dad up on a pedestal because he's my dad. So
that's where he should be.
Thank you. I think so too. I think he's a really awesome guy. Or I should say was a really awesome guy. But with that closure of East Oahu Realty was with Hawaii Life when we merged in 2019. And so that's where we are today. Now fast forward 2022, East Oahu Realty is now no longer, but there's this wonderful legacy that he's left behind from creating it.
Yes. I wanted to ask you because, you kind of get the yin and the yang with people that say, I've been dragged into real estate because my mom and my dad wanted me to do it so bad. I was never passionate. And then along the way, I fell in love with it. Or I wanted to do it. I was like sitting under the desk and the crackle was in the room. What was your story?
My story was that I had a toddler. I had a newborn, actually. I had just gotten licensed. I had a newborn baby who was my second child, Alyssa. First child is Jacob. And Alyssa was a baby, and Dad needed a new bookkeeper, and that was my background at the time. I did bookkeeping. And so when I say he needed a new one, that means he let Mom go from that position. So Mom was a bookkeeper before I was a bookkeeper.
I love that.
So I started taking care of the books, and even at that time, like having lived through COVID, which we've all experienced recently, he let me set my hours. I could work at night. I could work for 2 hours and then leave or whatever it needed. And I could bring Alyssa with me to the office. So it made it really, really easy to just do that type of job. But what happened was after years of being a bookkeeper, I was writing all the checks for the realtors. And I was like, my goodness, they're making some really nice commission checks. I think I want to transfer and be on the other side. So after I really appreciate having that experience because I know what it was like on both ends as far as what it takes to take care of an office and how hard these people were working to get that commission, and then having that desire myself to be part of that team. So I have both aspects of a background of appreciation for the whole process of what the company goes through, what an agent goes through.
Right, you're behind the scenes and you're making all these things happen for the agents, and then you decided to go the front line. So what year did you get licensed? Was that 1998?
Yes,
okay.
I was licensed in 1998. But I was working at the company before I was licensed.
Okay, so but you decided, I want to become a realtor.
I did, and I didn't know at the time that I would have a lot of tears just going through that licensing process.
I was just going to ask you that.
I felt like it was a whole new language I was learning. I didn't understand it that well at the time, although I was in the office and I got to hear a lot about it. Thankfully, I had this group of mentors and people I could go to say, okay, encroachment, tell me a little bit more, like explain it in normal terms. Like, what does this mean? So I had a lot of help.
How was your dad's reaction when you decided to become a realtor? Was he excited?
My dad was always positive with just about anything that we would ever do in our lives. And so I know that he was very happy. I remember going to him and feeling I'd never tested well, like if at school, when there was a test, I'd get all anxious. And I remember him saying, "You've got this. You're going to be fine."
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and thankfully it worked out.
Well, yeah, you're here, and you're definitely successful, so that did work out. That's wonderful. Did you ever see involvement from Jack with the Honolulu Board of Realtors? What can you say about that? Did you ever see any kind of involvement? I've heard wonderful stories.
Oh, thanks. I don't know exactly what type of committees, if any, he served on. So I really don't have anything to share.
But you did see that he was very active.
Yeah, I know that he was
Yeah.
to a certain degree, but I don't have specifics.
It's funny because I'm young. I feel like I'm so young in this room right now. I just have to point that out. But because I'm young in the industry, I heard wonderful things, and I did hear, and don't quote me, but I did hear that he was responsible for turning an award around. This award, right, and again, don't quote me, was supposed to be towards exalting the top producer. And he turned it around. I'm not sure if you know the story, but he was like, let's see what service is like. Let's see what agents are pouring their service out. And we even see that today, right? Mm-hmm. It's not more about the number or, it's more of the quality of work that you're doing. And he was responsible for that. Did you know that?
I did not know it to that degree, but it's funny. I was taking some notes about Dad, and when he was compiling East Oahu Realty, compiling agents for East Oahu Realty, I had written down that they had to have the same type of values and traits that he had, and you had to be honest, ethical, and a good steward of the community, really rooted in your community. And so I always knew that was a very important aspect as far as what he wanted to attract to be with him, and for the culture of East Oahu Realty to have those type of agents. And he never did award programs in the office. You never got a rose for being a top producer or your desk being a certain space. It was always, tell me what you're doing with your life outside of work. Like, where are you? What communities? Where are you serving?
He was always looking for the values. So my notes here say that the Aloha Aina Awards were originally going to be focused on realtor production, that top producer we were talking about.
Right.
But Jack proposed that Aloha Aina should be recognized realtors for excellent service.
Really? I had no idea.
Isn't that fantastic?
That is amazing.
I thought that you were going to say, I knew that already.
I had no idea.
I'm so happy that I'm able to give you that gift today.
That is huge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He was a fantastic man. And just learning about him before you and I sat down, I was taken back when they started telling me the stories because, you know, it's all about your value and integrity in this business.
Of course.
And you can get lost
in
it once you start seeing the big checks, right?
Right. Right.
So I want to know a little more about your journey in real estate. So you've told us that you got licensed back in 1998. You obviously passed the exam.
I did.
Because we're here today.
I'm so thankful. All I did was at the end of that testing cycle, I was like, just tell me if I passed or failed. That I don't want to know the number or what it is. Just pass or fail. And he's like, you passed.
Just skip through the number. Let's just get right. So I want to know, it was your journey. You know, in the beginning, you were kind of probably shadowing your dad, right? Yeah. So how did you navigate in that space on your own and really carry your own name?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, it could not have been done without not just Dad. It's everybody in the office. They were all inclusive. Everyone always helped one another. There was never a competition with one agent over another. The seasoned agents always would mentor any newer licensed agent, in which I fell in that category. So I didn't have just one mentor. I had dozens of people I could always go to, which I did daily and still do.
How fortunate.
That's the beauty of the office, of what he created, as far as having people that didn't compete with one another. They wanted to be a team together and to help each other and to give you good advice on, okay, this isn't happening well. This is what you might want to try to do.
Yeah, community of more of contribution versus competition, right?
Right, exactly.
So enlightening. I wanted to... and I keep going back and forth in my notes.
No, that's fine.
Offline, before we turned on these mics, right? And I said, save it for the show. We talked about the difference between the way it was then and the way it is now.
Right.
And I even shared a little story, how I can't even imagine looking for a home without the GPS.
Right.
So can you share with me what that journey was like back from 1998?
I remember working in the office even prior to 98. And when the books arrived, the MLS books of what the new listings were, what sold, what's new, it was like everybody lining up just because they couldn't wait to get their hands on the new books that are out. And I can remember hearing the dial-up of the internet and trying to connect to our system once it was activated. But yeah, it was a black and white, you know. You were just flipping the pages, trying to see what's new and where you're going to go to.
I was sitting here across from you, just trying to envision the whole thing. So they would come in boxes.
Boxes, you would unwrap them, and it was like Christmas. It's like, they're here, the books are here, the books are here.
Wow. And so you'd hand them out, and everyone would then do what with the books?
They just start scouring, writing notes, circling, deciding and they were just little books full of squares of homes and pictures and data.
So it's like life without the internet.
Life without the internet.
When I speak to you and I say this, I almost sound ridiculous because I feel like I'm a millennial. I'm not, right? But that's just how far we've come, right? It's 100 years of legacy. It's 100 years of building, of getting people in homes that they love, you know, and doing that and actually making this process smoother, making this process better.
Right.
What else can you share outside of the books? I know there's a lot more.
What else can I share about old time stuff?
Yes. Take us back. We're talking about 100 years. I mean, I know you haven't been doing it for 100 years, but...
I know. I wish I could. There's so many people that come to my mind that I just wish were sitting next to my side right now. Aloha Bob was in our office, and Bob Payne, Aloha Bob Payne, he was just the most interesting, wonderful, had a story. And what I remember the most of what he would share was... he didn't know just homes. He knew who lived in the homes, who was the neighbor, who was across the street. Like, he just knew so much more than even what we do nowadays. Nowadays, we can just look things up. But back in the day, I know that people just didn't know an address. They literally knew everyone who's living right there.
Can I just say that I love that? Because, real estate is a relationship business, and sometimes the internet, right, not just in your business, but even in your personal life, it takes you away from the connection. Mm-hmm. We're so dialed into the phone and the computer, we don't have that, what you're mentioning, sorry. And just to think that back then, people were connected to the community, which is what you're sharing, it's powerful, right? Mm-hmm. And I almost think, like, how can we get back there? Mm-hmm. Right? If we would just pull the internet away. I think COVID gave us a little bit of it, because we were now thinking about what was important,
right?
Which was our community. You mentioned that your dad was a huge mentor, and you had plenty of those in the office,
right?
Especially, I think, being his daughter, was thinking about you and worried about you excelling and doing great,
right?
If you can give yourself, your old self, I'm taking you back to 1998 again.
Oh, okay.
If you can give yourself advice, what would you say to yourself back then?
Oh, my advice probably to myself would be to enjoy the process and to trust that everything is always how it should be and will be and should be, as far as what's at the end of that, whatever process you're going through. Just trust that it's going to be okay. And it always normally is, even if it's a bump, even if you're wondering why is somebody something negative is happening, like, or what, why is my client not getting something accepted? Just even when you're writing more than one offer, you are in the learning process along the way. And so with anything, I would tell my old self, going through the process, even when it's a bad or negative or you don't understand why, just embrace it and learn from it and do better if you need to do better, or make amends if you need to make amends, or just know that in the long run, you're going to be fine.
I love that. That's so beautiful, especially in a industry like this where sometimes there's layers and layers of stress. Mm-hmm. So many moving parts, right? You're worried about your next paycheck. You're worried about taking care of the buyer or the seller or whatever hat you're wearing, right? Mm-hmm. To be able to trust the process and be comfortable in that space. I love that.
That just made me remember the first time I had a sale, and I had a termite inspection, and we had termites, and I remember, and I'm such an emotional person, it's really embarrassing at times, but my dad gave me that trait too. He was in tune with his emotions. And I remember getting the termite inspection back, and we had active termites, and I remember going to the office and telling my coworkers, we have termites. And they're like, honey, you're just going to tent the house. It's okay. You did to bring it back in. You don't have to get all flustered because you've got termites.
It's like Kim.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to have a lot of termites in your life.
And how funny is this? Just this last week, we just tented a property that my husband and I just purchased, and I was like, oh, it's just termites, this is nothing. We're going to get through this.
Right? Wow. I love that. I love those stories. That's what I wanted. Okay, I consider myself a new agent in front of you.
Yes.
This whole time I'm like, oh, I have a legacy going. I've been in real estate for 7 years. And then I come across Kim, and I'm like, I'm a new agent.
Well,
what advice could you give, newer agents in the field, such as myself and, people that are just getting licensed? What advice could you give outside of, what you've already shared, something that you think is intangible?
I think what's intangible is surrounding yourself with like-minded people, honesty, ethical standards. And I don't measure success on dollar production. I don't. That. It's about if you're sane and you're happy and you can still make it to the kids' soccer games or have your own book club that you're enjoying. You have to enjoy life along the process, but it's so important to be surrounded by mentors. Yeah. That's my advice, is just, and also to never stop learning, to always take those classes. just grow. That you, even when you think that you're signing up for a class, when you think that, oh, I've done this class, you're always going to find a nugget or something that you didn't know, something you're going to learn. I just say to mostly, and I'm also not saying that you shouldn't be around people that aren't like-minded, because then maybe you can have an influence on them as well.
Right.
But just as far as having a go-to person that you can call and say, hey, I'm in this situation, I really don't know how to handle it, you need that. And most of the time it is your principal broker or broker in charge, or a favorite friend, because it's not always about real estate.
Right. Yeah, someone that you could just bounce ideas off of. Your dad, can we say, was your mentor? Or did you have someone outside of your dad?
I have many mentors, and I think I can say I'm blessed to have many mentors. And that's because he had such an amazing group of people. Dad has always been my main mentor, only because we did life more similarly. You know what I'm trying to say. We are more fly by the seat of our pants, and also to have a party while we're flying.
Right.
Like, we're like, hey, how can we turn this into a party? And we do that. I mean, we always did everything. We tried to make a party. So we have a bit of the same type of personality. And I'm not sure where I was going with that. But other mentors, I have a really amazing friend at the office, Sherry Tsukamoto, who is also a real estate broker in charge. She was a principal broker after my dad had dementia and Parkinson's and was failing in his health. She stepped up and she was our principal broker. But she's also a friend, and she's also someone who is so grounded in her faith and in her lifestyle, as far as she's a real amazing woman that not only I get to appreciate, but hundreds of us, or I should say dozens too, or hundreds, because she's always teaching us. And we do have a Bible study that East Oahu Realty has had for like 20 years that's still going on, and she's in charge of that for us. And so we do get to meet every Tuesday. We did not miss meetings during COVID. We still are Zooming with one another, and we're always learning life lessons. So she was a very important and instrumental person in my life. But I also have lots of best friends, and not just one. I like to have a whole bunch of best friends.
Wow, everything you're sharing is, so heartfelt. You've surrounded yourself around fantastic people that have grounded you, people that have supported you, that have lifted you up, that worked with your dad, and know you, the real you, right? And I think that really helped you, if I should say, shape your business with a good, solid foundation, because, you can get into this business for the wrong reasons, if you know what I mean.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's a whole different podcast.
Right.
And so knowing that you got in with that solid foundation, from the legacy your dad built, right? I think the things we were talking about today, how he changed an award around to have such a meaningful purpose. And today...
Oh, that is so cool.
I know, I can't get over that, right? So today, that's something that he left for the industry, right? We don't want to get caught up with the big checks. We want to be purposeful in this industry. I
remember having a light bulb moment when my daughter, Allie, was probably 4 years old, maybe somewhere around there. And I was working a lot at the time. And I thought, we're in the car, I'm driving to pick up my son at school. And I remember her sharing names, saying, Daddy's name is J. Parker Soares. Brother's name is Jacob Parker Soares. My name is Alyssa Marie Soares. Mommy's name is Kim from East Oahu Realty. I was like, no, my name is not that. That's when I knew adorable. That's when I knew I needed to not work as much, perhaps, or have her around with this is Kim from East Oahu Realty.
or the positive side to it was that you did great branding.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I was just things popping back in my head.
How old are your children now?
Our son, Jacob, is 27, and happily married to his high school sweetheart,
Wow,
Christy.
that's beautiful.
And they just had their 2-year anniversary. And our daughter, Alyssa, is 23.
Wow. I have a 22-year-old baby.
Oh, you do?
So I can relate. But she doesn't know me as Maria from Real Estate.
No, she doesn't.
I want to ask you one more question, and then
Sure.
we're going to wrap things up. I want to ask you I'm not sure how involved you were with HBR. I know real estate sometimes it can take a toll, and we'd like to participate, and sometimes we just can't. But if you had some advice for the agents over at HBR, what would you recommend? And before you answer, I just want to share a really quick story,
Okay.
which I love. You mentioned before taking classes and the importance of, being dialed in and continuing to grow so you can help others, and having mentors so they can help you. And it kind of goes full circle, right? So I was telling Suzanne the other day that I started my career without even realizing at HBR, because you know how they collect the HBR dues every year. So when I first arrived to Hawaii back in 2014, I got a job, right? I used to be part of corporate America, and I got a job as a temp collecting dues.
Oh, you did?
At the HBR office.
Wow.
And so when I got my license, they were all celebrating. And so I learned early on, because I kept reading all the brochures, and I was like reading everything that was going on there at the lobby, that they had all these classes and they have all this information, right? And sometimes we just don't take advantage of that. So when you mentioned taking classes, continuing to grow, it's so important. So I'm going to popcorn back over to you.
Okay.
What advice could you give agents about HBR?
Well, I think I would just share with them that their resources are available, and it's been easier. I don't know what's happened internally in the last couple years, specifically in the last year. There's been a shift of, I can see online that things are easier to navigate through. We're seeing different, MLS tips, the minute tips or whatever they are. I'm just saying, it just seems like things are really coming together and they're easier to find as far as resources. Just by logging in and looking up educational classes, they're all right there in front of you. There's YouTube classes that they sponsor. So yeah, I think that just know that they're there and play around with the site a bit to see what interests you and start watching.
It's been a wonderful journey. It's been a wonderful journey to hear about your dad, his story, your story before you even became a real estate agent. And I don't think a lot of people know that story. So thank you for sharing that here today and for being vulnerable and talking about.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My dad always ended every day when somebody walked out of the office, he always said, "Happy day." And so I would just share with you, that's what always comes back to with me in my head is happy day. If we all just said happy day to one another, maybe that would help remind us that we need to try to stay positive and give each other some love.
I love that. And you know what? I'm going to end this podcast with that. Happy day.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.